Alrighty, hello everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm just gonna give it another minute to get everyone to jump in because our waiting room is actively populating. So let's give it just a minute and then we'll kick this off and talk about a lot. If you've got pen and paper, make sure you get that ready. There's a workbook as well, which we'll drop in again if you haven't received it. And then for those of you that are already here, we would love to know, just tell us a little bit about you. So we want to know what's your stage of your thesis, what type of thesis, maybe it's a PhD, maybe it's something else, a master's. Um, so I would love to know in the chat if everyone, make sure I admit everyone can let us know just a little bit about you, your topic and just a type of thesis or just where you're at, maybe in the final stages. Maybe you're fully writing this up. Let us know in the chat a little bit about you just while we're giving this a couple more seconds and then we'll kickstart this as well. Thank you, Val. Val's just dropped the workbook in the chat. We might drop it in a couple of times to make sure everyone can see it. And then we'll go. Alrighty. So if you've just joined us, we are just going to use the chat function already to get you to tell us your type of thesis, what stage you're at, and anything else you'd like to share. We'd love to know, to get to know you guys. I can see some familiar faces here as well, which is really good to see. Hi, Sonam. It's really good to see you. COC stage, which is really good. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so I can see people as well. All righty. Okay. Lots of PhD students here. Third year. Yes, I've spoken to so many of you guys over the last couple of days. We've had some email conversation with many of you guys about the stage you're at or just some of your challenges. And there's been some really interesting conversations that we've had. There's a few of you guys at the confirmation stage, which is brilliant. Like that means we can really start to cultivate today anyway, a bit of a writing attitude and how you're going to go about your writing that will hopefully really set you up for the years through the PhD. If you're in the final stages, gosh, this is good timing, right? Because I'm sure you're writing up. So really good. So if you've just joined us, I'm just still admitting people. Then just please let us know a little bit about you, your type of thesis, the stage you're at, even the topic if you want to share that as well. And then we'll get going. So we do these free workshops every 2 months. We may even start to do them more often. They're really there to give you guys a bit of training and topics that we really know and believe in, that we know is going to do something for you when it comes to your thesis and the progress that you can make. We tend to over deliver in these workshops, but if you can take 1 or 2 things, maybe 3 things away, there's really those 3 things that can be implemented and you can really shift something for you today, then that's great. Don't feel like you have to nail all these things that we teach, but hopefully today we're going to leave you guys through it. So we're going to cover a fair bit of topics today and tomorrow. They all recorded, so if you can't make it tomorrow, you'll get the recording tomorrow. You'll get today's recording tonight. That means you can revisit this stuff. I would also encourage that. We believe in repetition because you take different things away every time you visit some of this work as well. Today's session is going to be about just getting you aligned and focus on a particular goal and what goals can look like. I was ignorant to goals and I didn't think I needed them because I was positive and motivated and I did pretty okay. But there's a real understanding as to what goals can do and how if we actually just focus on our goals, it means we're putting our brains and our consciousness actually towards the things that we want, right? We tend to focus on the things that we don't want, the struggles, the frustrations. And if we put our consciousness towards those things, we're having more of those things, right? So there's a real purpose around understanding what goals can do for you. Then, so grateful for Kate. Kate Anderson is here. She'll give you a wave. She's going to do a lot of today about the big topic, the bigger topic of motivation, but also, the underlying factors of procrastination and perfectionism. I'm not sure who procrastinates here. We all procrastinate. We actually encourage it at times because we want you to clean up your desk and your space, because create some order around you, because success really craves order. So that's one of the things that we actually say, spend the time, go and procrastinate and clean up your desk, right? Because success really craves order. It's really hard to create and expand if we're in chaos or it's a little bit messy. And then she's also going to talk to you about flow states, which is a little bit about how we can be very productive, often spending less time but high quality time on the work that we want to do. So that's going to be today's topics. We'll see how we go for time. If there's time left, I may start talking about how you guys can focus on high leverage activities, because we tend to spend a lot of times on activities that don't give you the biggest results, right? Or the things about writing that may not give you the biggest progress at the end of the day. So we're going to give you some tangible things to focus on that's going to give you highest leverage when it comes to the work that you do. So that'll be more so tomorrow, but I might start that today if there's a bit of time. Tomorrow we'll talk about just the attitude that you bring to writing, because what you think you're going to have. So if we think we can't do it and it's going to be hard and it's going to take you a long time, then you're going to have that, right? So what if we shift that and start to think a little bit different about how we go about the thesis, the writing, and everything else around it. We'll also talk about how to impress examiners with your writing. That'll be more so tomorrow. And then we're going to do a big part of the ABC of writing, which is then giving you some real examples of what it takes to be accurate, really accurate in your writing, but also brief, but also clear, right? And I know that some topics that's really come up as well. So a great big welcome to all of you guys. Let us know if this is your first time. Maybe just give us a wave. If you've not been to our workshops, then a massive welcome to you guys. So good to see. I know there's many of you guys that hasn't been to our workshops. I can see many here that's been in our workshops. I can also see students here. Carrie's here, Marie's here. That's in our programs, and they still come to these sessions because there's value in hearing the same stuff over and over and over, and they can really contest to that. Mary's here, good to see you. Melissa's here. Love having you guys jump in. Michelle's here. So really think about this as not just a once-off workshop that's going to change your life. The key here is to really come back and revisit some of the topics, right? Because we take one or two things away now, but it is really key to think about revisiting this, right? Sometimes we need 10 touch points, right? Which is annoying, but true, to really make a difference in something. So I'm going to bring my slides back up and just go through a couple of things, and then Kate, I'll hand it over to you as well. Let me just present this. So I've gone through the topics for today and for tomorrow. I can just get this up. And then the workbook, it's been dropped in the chat. If you haven't got the workbook, let us know. We will drop it in again in the chat, because if you've come a little bit later, you may have missed it. Let us know if you need the workbook, right? It's an extensive workbook. The last time we did this topic, we didn't have a workbook. Now there's a big workbook, right? Participate, use it. If you don't have it or you can't really access it, that's fine. Pen and paper is going to do a lot of things for you as well today. So that's all good. And then a couple of other things. We'll use the chat function throughout. Please engage, because it's going to be something that the team will monitor, and we can often use some of the feedback that we get to give this a bit more of a personalized session for you. So please feel free to use the chat function as much as you can. There will be some opportunities for you guys to come off mute and ask questions as well, because we really crave and believe in having conversations, it's where we get the biggest progress happening as well. And then we always pick 3 winners because we can't help it to have a bit of fun. If you are here for both days and you've contributed in the chat a little bit, you get to go in a draw. And then 3 of you guys will get a free strategy session basically with myself, which is 60 minutes where we can do whatever you want. We can unpack your goals. We can set your timeline for whatever's left. We can look at your writing if that's something you really want. There's so much that we can do, and I can basically have a conversation with you as to what you want to do with that 60 minutes. So to qualify, we just need you to be here in both days and put a couple of things in the chat and engage. Everyone clear? Let me just make sure we're all set in the chat. Hi, Paulina. Always good to see you. Darlene, I'm going to send you an email. Is this a link? It doesn't work for me. Yeah, sometimes the PDF download doesn't work. So if that's the case, Val, you can just share it as a Google link, a Drive link. Perhaps you can drop it in as a Google Drive link, Val. So we'll get that going. All right, so let's get going with day one. And I have a question here that I think everyone is quite curious about always, but how do you feel about your writing? And just how do you feel about writing your thesis? What comes up for you? And as always, keep it really real and honest in this space. We're not here to hide anything and make anything up. So I would love, love, love to hear what comes up for you when you think about writing your thesis. Overwhelmed? Love writing. That's so good. Doesn't mean it's easy sometimes. Overwhelmed. Think I'm not good enough. Absolutely. Right? I think we've all had that one. I can tell you that. Katie, good to have you. But are really hard to get it out. Yeah, and most of us can talk it, but it's hard to sometimes take what we know and how we talk about things to writing. There's actually there's a big stretch there from actually taking things to pen and paper. Edits, it's really soul destroying, the edits and the feedback, right? But we're actually going to talk a little bit about feedback and how we can manage that. Yeah, whether you capture what needs, question about how to begin, right? Really good. None of us know how to begin, right? 2 steps forward and you know more, 2 steps forwards and you know more. Imposter is so real. I can't tell you, even I have imposter still, right? In a different era of my life, but I can tell you it's real. And it comes and goes, right? It's something that at the end of the day, it's about how we navigate these things. And the difference between some people that's learned some of the stuff that we teach is that we just get better at navigating certain stuff. The highs and lows, we don't take away the lows. You're always going to have the lows, but the difference is you get better at navigating them. The lows don't take you out as much, and you can drive a lot more progress. Disorganized, yes. If you're disorganized, create some order, right? We have to create order. Success really, really craves order. And again, we can help you depending on what does organized look like for you. Who was that, Penelope? All right, so good. Yeah, really nice. And I appreciate everyone's little comments. And I think you guys are basically commented the stuff that we see here. So very few, when it comes to asking that questions about writing, actually talks about the writing itself, the time management, the structure of the chapters. And I know that has come up a fair bit, especially about whether I've put in enough information or where do I need to put the information. But the majority of the time, these are the challenges that comes up. And I really want to share this today. And we haven't done this before because sometimes what we think is our biggest challenge, there's often other things around that really is the biggest stuff or the things that we can really pay attention to. Because if we take care of some of these things, maybe it's the confidence or the self-trust, or maybe it's just creating a bit of that, prioritization or that order that we spoke about. Maybe it's the identity of who you are as a student or as a researcher. If we can establish some of those things and work on those aspects, the writing's going to happen, right? So I think, this is just a little bit of awareness to think about that writing matters. It's often part of the challenge, but sometimes there are other challenges surrounding the writing that we just want you guys to start to think about what that could look like. And your answers have perfectly matched us as well. So really, really good. Can you guys not see the slides? Oh, I've been sharing the wrong slides. Hang on. I've been sharing this. That's no good. What are you guys seeing? Or are you seeing my other screen? Thanks for letting me know. Let me just redo this. That's what happens when you run multiple classes and multiple screens. All right. Thanks for telling me. All right. Are we good now? Can see that slide? All right, so I asked the question. You guys gave me beautiful answers. And guess what? This is what we found in the discussions we've recently had with a number of you guys, right? That those answers that you've given in the chat matched what we see, which is very few talk about the actual critical aspects. Thank you, Sabra. Writing matters, but there's often these other bigger topics as well, right? So I want to focus just a little bit for the next 5 minutes on this topic of goals, which is something that I spoke about earlier. And really, like I said, it's a topic that I didn't think I needed to focus on, but it's really essential if you understand what it can do for you. So I have another question, which is how many of you guys know when your thesis is due? Who knows their submission date? Perhaps you can let us know. Or maybe let us know if you have no idea. Sometime at the end of the year, I often hear this. March 27, April 27. Oh, there's a few of you guys close by. You should hang out. Mid-October, that's getting a bit more vague. Hoping for June. Yeah, okay, nice. Right. Now, what comes up for you when you see that date? What's one thing that it triggers a little bit? When you go, well, I want to have this done by the end of the year, you might start to think, but something. Yeah, Katie's onto it. Pressure. Yep. So when we set a goal and you have a goal, there's often something that then, especially in the educated, logical, beautiful minds that all of you guys are representing, who here wonders about how it's going to happen? Give me a yes if you absolutely get stuck on, or at least fear, but how, right? Because at the moment, you may not be able to see it. You have no idea how because there's too many unknowns and there's certainly too many uncertainties around your structures, your chapters, how you're going to write because no one's taught you how to write for science. And this is what keeps a lot of us really, really, really stuck, right? Unless we can't see how it's going to happen, we find it really hard to move forward, right? And the more educated you are, the more this becomes an issue, right? And not knowing how to do something can also keep you really safe and really keep you stuck, right? And keep you from progressing and achieving the very thing that you really want. So there's a definition that I really love about a goal, right? And this is a really, really true spot on definition by Bob Proctor. And I'll read his quote. A goal is something that you really, really want. Do you guys want it? Tell me if you really want it, right? It's something you've never done before, is designed to help you grow, and it causes you to draw something from yourself that you didn't know even was there, and it's something that you don't know how to do, right? So I hope this brings a bit of understanding or some relief to know that the prerequisite to anything, and I really had some one-on-one conversations with some of our students in our programs about this to say, I just need you to really want it. That's one of the prerequisites, right? If you really want something, how it happens in between will come, right? But a goal is only something that you really want and you don't know how to do it, right? And just knowing this, that you're not supposed to know how to do this, and that makes this the perfect thing for us, is a pretty cool thought, right? That means you're exactly doing the very thing that you need to do. Now, I'll quickly share this. Sometimes we have people that are so close to reaching their goal. You may have people in other areas of life, other fields, other personal stuff. They're so close to having the very thing that they always wanted, and then they pull out. Maybe that was you. I'm not sure if anyone has had an experience like that, where you're so close to reaching a goal, you've seen someone else very close to having the very thing that they want, yet they pull out. And the thing is that that happens because when you're so close to the end of something, you start to see how it's going to happen, because suddenly for the first time you realize, but if I write only one more chapter and I know how to do it already, there's not a lot of inspiration, motivation in doing something that you know how to do, right? And this often happens the closer you get to the finish line, is that you start to see for the first time how it's possible. Now, there's no motivation in doing something you know how to do, right? So keep that in mind. And sometimes that we see this quite often in some of the students that we work with, that they at the pointy end, and if you're at that stage, maybe you're 6 months away, 3 months or a year, you may get into a state where suddenly you know exactly how to do this PhD. You know how to write it up. You've been given a structure even from your team, and you've just got to sit down and write, but you cannot be stuff moving. You are not sitting down to write and there's no motivation coming through, right? And the reason is because you know how to do this now, right? So then often we have to stretch you and create another goal that scares you, that you don't know how to do, but absolutely is something that you want in order to help move the PhD along, right? So let me know if you can relate to that, but it's a really good concept to also be aware of, because often at the end, motivation and inspiration really drops off because you start to see that it's possible, yeah? And goals, do you have them, or are you just working, right? We really remind students all the time that just have a goal for, say, we always have a mid-year goal. We have a monthly goal and we have the big goal, right? And it's something that you have to connect with every single day, because it just pushes your consciousness towards that stuff. Most of us don't reach our goals because we don't focus on it every day. We focus on other stuff, which is fine, but you also need to focus on this goal of having the PhD done and how awesome it feels, right? And you shouldn't know how to do this, but you need to be reminded that that's what you're working towards, right? Because logical and educated thinking will also keep you safe. And that's something that's really evident in this community as well, because we sometimes are too calculated. And I certainly was very calculated for most of my career. It made me a good scientist, perhaps, because I really researched every decision I made, but it kept me safe, right? And especially in the university system, who here has been told about SMART goals? Maybe you guys can remind me, because I've not worked with SMART goals for some time. But SMART goals are not goals, right? They are, what are they? Specific, measurable, actionable, something time. I always forget the R. They are things that you know how to do. They're really good objectives to have, right? But there's not a whole lot of realistic, thank you. There's not a whole lot of inspiration and motivation from having SMART goals. They basically are to-do lists, they're objectives, they're action steps. They're great to have, but they're not going to motivate you, right? What's going to motivate you is, I'm so happy and grateful now this PhD is done, and having that done and that feeling and that vision that this is done. You've got no idea how to do this PhD, but you're going to do it, right? That's actually where our inspiration and motivation comes from. Thanks, Darlene. You guys are writing it. So again, something to think about, that you're not supposed to know how to do this, right? And in the workbook, we've given you a couple of templates to just have a go at creating your chapter outline. Now, if you've done one already, amazing, revise it, keep working with it, because your ultimate goal is to populate chapters. And the number of conversations that we have for students, whether it's first year, often third year, and they have no idea what their chapters will be, right? We create a chapter outline day one of the PhD. Why? Because we can. We know what it does, what it takes to create a PhD, right? We give it a base structure, we map out 5 or 6 chapters, and then we work with that. We get more specific, we get more clearer, we have more conversations, right? So I want all of you guys to have a go at creating a chapter outline. Just with whatever knowledge you have, create your chapters, right? And then take that and have a conversation with your team about what that may look like and get more clearer and clearer and clearer, because your ultimate goal here is to populate chapters. If you populate all your chapters, you are done, right? But we tend not to spend time on the very thing that you are here to do, which is to write your chapters, right? And then we also gave you a little tracker that can help you motivate, which is to coloring the dots as well, to do this. So that's it for me for the minute. I put this picture in there because a lot of the times it's crossing the finish line for you, which is often an easier job with the students that we work with. Sometimes the biggest work that we do is to make sure you cross the finish line with your team. So engage your team, share them that thesis outline document, get their input, get their validation on it, then go, right? And you share with them structures of your chapters and all those kind of things, because we've got to keep your team in this. The more you can have conversations with them, if you're pushing out meetings in your final year because you're writing up, you're in trouble, right? You've got to get that team more exposed to who you are, what you're doing, where you're at, and how many chapters they've already seen, right? They're in and out. And I can tell you the final month, final year wobbles. With the best teams, it'll wobble, right? Often because they're not quite in this as much as you are, but your number one priority with all your meetings is to keep your team in this. Then we can get some feedback and actual guidance from them, but you're here to expose them to your work and where you're at. Do not push meetings out because you're writing up. You actually have to double them, right? Because the easy part is to get you to cross the finish line. The harder part is to cross with the team behind you that needs to sign off. Yeah. All right. I hope that's given you a couple of pointers to just kick this off as well. I'm going to bring on the beautiful Kate to jump in and do her bit. Let me know if there's any questions around what I've just shared. Just drop in the chat and I can respond to it as well. Kate, you happy to share your slides?
I am. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming on board. We have 51 participants, which is amazing. That's fantastic. So good that we can share with so many people. Let me share my screen. Okay, just a quick check. Can everybody see that page? Write down a goal that you'd like to achieve by mid-year. Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, thank you for coming on board, and thanks, Zell, for a great kickoff. So I'm going to take over now and talk through a few of the blocks that I really see coming through from Complete Thesis Support cohort. But what I'd like to start with before I dive into the content is I'd like you to start with what you'd like to achieve by mid-year. Now, I know we're very close to mid-year, so maybe you could push this out to a short-term goal, say, by the end of June or the end of July, something that's a little bit more pointy and tangible. And the reason that I like to do this is because you can apply what I'm about to teach you specifically to this particular goal. So I'll give you a chance to do that. If you go to the workbook, it's actually on page 5. And this is what I'd love you to fill out. So end of year goal, I'm going to make that mid-year for this particular one. If you want to make it end of year, if that's more relevant to you, that's completely fine. So I'd like you to start by writing down your goal and why that goal is important to you, because we want to make sure that this goal is a little bit pointy and motivating. Yeah. Once you've taken the time to do that, and remember, you can print this off as many times as you like. So if you just want to start with a draft goal for now, that's completely fine. And then I'd like you to just check in and see what emotions that you're experiencing in relation to the goal. Now, these can be good or bad, or what I like to call comfortable or uncomfortable. I won't go into my diatribe around good and bad emotions in this particular workshop. So this could be some of those ones that you called out before. I noted down overwhelmed, stressed, stuck, disorganized, but it could also be positive things like proud, excited, etc. So there's no right or wrong when it comes to emotions. So once you've established a goal or even a draft goal, note down why it's important to you. I want you to check in on what those emotions might be. And if you've got more, just pop them underneath. I'm going to talk through this and I'm going to give you a few moments to have a play. And if you don't have the workbook, just write it down on a notepad beside you. All good. So I also want you to think about what your life would be like if you achieved that goal. And I'd actually like to cross out if in this case and put when. Yeah. Because we all have an intention of reaching these goals. So what would life be like when I achieve this goal? You know, what's possible? What doors does it open up for you? How would you feel? What freedom can it give you? And then this is the interesting bit. So I'd like you to consider what you think your biggest blocks to achieving the goal is. And what you actually believe about the goal. For example, whether it's possible, whether it's hard, whether you're capable enough, whether you're smart enough. Some of the beliefs you also mentioned before. You know, I'm unable to meet standards. Scientific writing is difficult. I'm not good enough. There's never enough time. Yeah. Because if we're going to set a goal, let's get real about it, real about our perception of that particular goal, because this is the thing. What you think, you create. And if you think this process is going to be impossible or difficult or overwhelming or too hard, guess what? That will be your experience of it. Okay, now I'm not saying that stepping into this journey of writing a paper or a thesis is easy. Okay, but you've stepped up for a good challenge that will shape you as a person. Okay, and if you've got any additional thoughts, just note them down there. And what I want to make sure that we're doing is this is not about toxic positivity. Okay, we want to get real with what we're thinking. Yeah, because our brain can respond to realism. So just let me know. I'll open up the chat again. Hello, Melissa. I'll open up the chat again. And if you've got any questions, drop them in. Or if you need more time, just drop in time. And I'll give you a couple more minutes. And if I don't hear from you in a sec, I'll move on. Okay. So just to recap before I move on then, set a goal. Ideally, relatively soon. The longest I'd really love you to stretch it out to is probably the end of the year, just to make it nice and pointy. Indicate why your goal is important, the emotions that you're feeling around it. Note down what life would be like when you achieve the goal. Note down what your biggest blocks are and what beliefs you might have around it. And any other thoughts, just pop below. Okay. So in this workshop, I would like to invite you to work with yourself rather than against yourself. Okay, we're going to flip the script today and we're going to explore the typical things that keep thesis students' brains and bodies stuck. I'm going to share with you some ways that you can break free of these and really tap into ways of working that keep your creativity and your energy flowing. Okay, so you have a really beautiful outcome when you've finished writing your thesis and delivering it. Okay. So one thing that's really has been really obvious over the last few years is one of the biggest blocks, one of the biggest procrastination sticking points with the complete thesis support cohort is the fear of feedback. Yeah. Just pop in the chat if you relate. Has the fear of feedback ever stopped you from doing work or submitting work or having meetings with your supervisors? If that feels relevant to you, then I'd love you to just pop me in the chat. Okay, that's interesting. Delays in getting it. Yeah, that's super frustrating. I understand that, Wilhelmina. Yeah. Yes, and the big fear of letting them down. Yeah. What else shows up when it comes to feedback? Oh, this is good. Delay sending chapters because of fear of feedback. Yes, that is a very amazing example of procrastination right there. So let's make sure we're working with that today. That doesn't drive your procrastination. Okay, cool. Well, let's work out what does. Okay. Feedback feels like one step forward, two steps back. It can feel like that. Yes. But one step forward is still good. Yeah. All of these comments that I'm reading, and I invite you all to read what's in the chat because you won't feel alone when you do that, right? Yeah. Everybody has very similar fears. Yeah. Feedback never ends. Not enough. Not enough. Yeah. Yeah. Feels like it's attacking yourself. Now, this is really interesting. And we actually had a chat about this in one of our last group sessions where because what we're doing is so important to us when it comes to thesis writing, and it's really attached to our identity often. Yeah. It can feel like a measure of who you are as a person. You know, the fact that everybody on this call, if they're doing their master's, if they've done a university degree, if they've stepped up to the plate to write a thesis, there is a part of you that has a belief in your intelligence and your capability. Yeah. You can relate to that. Yeah. You wouldn't do it otherwise. However, this process, you know, of writing your thesis and having supervisors and receiving feedback and having your ideas challenged and delayed and having difficulties in communication, even when you know that you're intelligent enough to do this process, it can have a really, really stressful effect on your sense of identity. Yeah, it can make you question whether you're good enough. Yeah, it can make you question whether you're capable. It can make you question your sanity sometimes. Yeah. But everybody on this call is doing this for a reason. Yeah. And this is why these goals are so important, because we need to keep coming back to these goals to ensure that we have the resilience to finish. Yeah. And resilience is being present with the reality of the situation and present with what is, and feedback is part of that. Yeah. And the emotions that show up are only there really to help guide us, okay, and to teach us, because emotions are really just data, they're neuropeptides. Yeah. So some of these emotions that have been showing up for you when you fear feedback, obviously fear is an emotion that shows up. The purpose of fear is to try and keep you safe, safe from discomfort, safe from all the bad feelings, right? But overwhelm, the purpose of overwhelm is actually to stop you and invite you to break things down into digestible pieces so you can process and just move forward one step at a time. Yeah, we're never meant to stay in overwhelm. We're supposed to listen, stop, and then simplify. Yeah. Imposter syndrome, that's a whole other workshop, but we'll be delivering that in the coming months. So stay tuned, everybody. And then this perfectionism procrastination piece, which I'll dive into in today's workshop. This is what we'll be really exploring today. But I just want to really just acknowledge that if you read through this chat, this is really valuable stuff. You can all see that you're all experiencing the same type of stresses in your own unique way based on this fear of feedback. And I want to really drive home this. Feedback, although it can be painful, it's always an opportunity to learn and grow. Just like any triggers that we have during receiving feedback, again, are opportunities for us to get to understand ourselves better and know ourselves better and to learn and grow. Okay, it's not an attack on your capability or your intelligence. It's just feedback. Yeah. And this process of completing your thesis and coming out on the other side is going to be, I can guarantee, one of your biggest opportunities for personal growth. Okay, you will learn more about yourself in this process than you will probably doing most other things. Okay? So you've got to saddle up and get ready to go, because this takes some resilience and some bravery. But you're all here, so let's equip you with some tools that make this process a little easier. Okay, so the three main takeaways I would like you to walk away with is to understand the real root cause of procrastination, self-pressure, because I really believe that when we have a better understanding of these things, we can empower ourselves around them. Secondly, I want to show you how to interrupt procrastination and perfectionism and reverse what I call the downward spiral through self-awareness, regulation, and curiosity. And then I want to help you discover how progress, not perfectionism, helps unlock creative thinking and productivity. Does that sound good? Three good takeaways? Excellent. So I'd like to start with this fact. Perfectionism and procrastination are not, I will repeat, are not productivity issues. They are energy and emotional regulation issues. Okay? We give ourselves such a hard time for procrastinating. Yeah, we really shame ourselves sometimes. But what that does, and I'll go through this in more detail later, that creates a negative downward spiral that just makes the situation worse. Okay? It doesn't mean anything apart from the fact that we're emotionally dysregulated. Okay? So, as I said, they're not personality flaws, and you're not broken, and neither is your brain. Your brain is just doing its job. It's really just being trained to associate certain tasks with stress, uncertainty, and self-doubt. Okay? And the truth is, you're not lazy if you procrastinate. You're not unmotivated, because all of you here are motivated to achieve your goal. Okay? And you're not necessarily bad at time management. Okay? For all of you to have gotten this point in your life, you have to have had a decent relationship with time management. Okay? You mightn't be perfect at it, but you have to be competent enough at it to be as effective in life as you have been to date. Okay? So what I want you to do, let's create some reality here. I want you to think about something you've been procrastinating on and just write it in this personal reflection part of your workbook. Just one thing in relation to your goal, ideally. Just think about one thing that you've been procrastinating on. It could be setting up a meeting with your supervisors. It could be finishing a chapter. It could be some data collection, something to do with your ethics progress. Just one thing at least. I would like you to just think about that one thing. Yeah? Just get clear on that. Okay? If you want to share, you'll probably find there are some writing triangulation chapter. Yeah. Why don't you share what you're procrastinating on? Because you'll probably find that you can all relate. And I just want to really let you in on a secret as to why I've written this workshop. Is because I was the absolute queen of procrastination. And I got so frustrated with myself that I had to do something about it. So I started studying how to stop procrastinating because it was just having such a detrimental effect on my wellness and my efficacy in life. So I'm not preaching this from somebody who hasn't experienced this myself. I want to let you know that I am down there in the muck with you, and I have just learnt certain techniques and concepts that have helped me along the way. All right, so what have we been procrastinating? Too many revision comments. Yeah. Qual chapter, addressing all of the track changes, comments in the Word document. Ooh, yeah, that's a good procrastination. Okay. Yep. Rewriting. Yes. Redoing my lit review search. Who uses research as a procrastination tool or admin as a procrastination tool? That's pretty common with you guys. Revising a rejected manuscript. Oh. Searching for more journals. Yep. Oh, that's searching. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we're all starting to connect with our little procrastination pieces. Okay. All right. Let's keep that in mind as we move forward because I'm conscious of time. All right. So just so we've got a bit of context as to what's actually happening in our brain, I'm just going to talk you through this really quickly because all of your brains are pretty amazing. Okay. Because I consider every thesis writer to be a creative. You are all creating something new in the world. You wouldn't be writing this if it already existed, or this information already existed, or if this question had already been answered. Okay, so you are all creative. And when you are creative, you actually engage with multiple brain networks in ways that are really, really unique and really dynamic. Okay. And that involves the co-activation of 3 key systems in the brain. Your default mode, I never say this right, the default mode network, bit of a tongue twister for me, that one. So that's in charge of imagination, introspection, idea generation, things like that. Then you've got your executive control network, which is about focus, planning, and self-monitoring. And then you've got your salience network, which allows you to switch between internal thoughts and external focus. And all of these areas of the brain are lit up when you're being creative and you're doing free-flowing ideation and structured decision-making, which is what is required for writing a thesis. And you do this very, very effectively, okay? However, when we're under stress, that gets affected. So what's happening in our creative brain, and the more creative we are, the more prone we are to procrastination, which is really, really interesting. So what happens when we get stressed about tasks, and this stress could just be the task that lays ahead might feel boring. We're trying to avoid this discomfort of boredom, okay? Not everything that you do is exciting when it comes to writing a thesis, unfortunately. So what happens is that your amygdala, which is a little gland in your brain, essentially, it gets activated, particularly when it comes to stressful emotions or fear-based emotions. Now, what that does is that turns off the prefrontal cortex, which is this beautiful thinking part of our brain. Yeah. And then what happens is that the energy defaults to the basal ganglia, which is our autopilot or our habitual part of the brain. And then the vagus nerve takes over, which is that fight-flight response. And because of this sequence of events that happens when our brain is stressed, what that actually means for when it comes to writing or creating is that we can't create anything properly in a state of fear. Okay? We can only really create from a place of calm or from a calm brain. Okay? And that's why that negative downward spiral happens with procrastination. Yeah. Because if we make ourselves bad and wrong for procrastinating, it feeds the fear and down we go. Okay. And then we've lost hours and then we berate ourselves and make ourselves feel worse for it. Yeah. Is this resonating? Yeah. People have felt this before? Yep. Okay. So I think the key to overcoming something is to truly understand it. Okay. So I want to pull back the curtain on these blocks because they're often, masquerading as things that they're not. So perfectionism, which I believe is the sister of procrastination. Yeah. So perfectionism is basically keeping you safe. I like to say perfectionism is protectionism. Yeah. And if you've read any of Brené Brown's work, she'll often say perfectionism is the lie that we tell ourselves that protects us from all the uncomfortable emotions like shame, pain, judgment, criticism, etc. And that's why we keep tweaking and refining rather than sharing when it comes to feedback. Yeah. Because we think if we get it perfect and we hand it in, that we'll avoid all the criticism and the pushback and the changes. Yeah. And procrastination, dovetailing into that, whispers, you'll do your best work later when the conditions are right, when you've got the energy, when you've slept well. You know, because. Okay, they're really codependent, but they really suffocate your momentum, your productivity, and the joy in the process. Okay? So perfectionism is actually driven from the fear of inadequacy. Yeah. And you mentioned some of these feelings before, earlier in the call, you know, imposter syndrome, unable to meet high standards, not being good enough. Those things are what drives perfectionism. Okay. Now, I'm not saying don't strive for excellence. Yeah. We always want to do our best work with the resources that we have. Okay. But perfectionism is a trap. Yeah. It stifles productivity and spontaneity. It stops us from being creative. It blocks our flow. It kills momentum. Yeah. Not helpful when it comes to writing a thesis. And then procrastination, it's actually your nervous system safety strategy. Yeah. So it enables perfectionism. So it's not a lack of willpower, it's your nervous system's response. Okay, this task feels risky. I feel vulnerable doing this or sharing this. I'm uncertain about this, I'm not quite sure. Okay. Well, this is boring and I really don't want to do it. Yeah, so let's delay it. So we avoid because it feels emotionally unsafe to actually do the work. Okay. But creativity itself thrives on action, not hesitation. And I'll describe this through the work that I take you through with flow states shortly. Okay, so what I want you to do as a strategy piece to help you overcome procrastination is I want you to shine a spotlight on your patterns. Yeah. So we can step towards real positive change. Okay. So if you go to your workbook, my go-to procrastination habits on page 7, I've given you a few prompts here, so you can just do a quick tick if any of them resonate. But we'll all have our go-tos, right? And a lot of the people in complete thesis support groups know that mine is cleaning kitchen drawers. My kitchen is sparkling the more I procrastinate. My husband actually has caught on to that. He goes, are you cleaning again? What should you be doing? This kitchen doesn't need to be this clean. We have children for that. And then my backup one is laundry. So yeah. But everyone's got their own. So I want you to get familiar and really shine a light on what your go-to procrastination habit is. So if it's on this list, give it a tick. And if it's not on this list, write it below. So, you know, what do you do to stay busy when you should be busy doing other things? And if there's any ones that are fun, drop them in the chat. Looking up realestate.com. Oh my God, Katie, I do that too. You should. Oh my God, I should add that in. I'm looking up all this property in the Southern Highlands, New South Wales. Oh, I get such a kick from it. So it's a good dopamine hit for me. Oh my God, look at this. So yes, going to IKEA. Oh yes, attending lots of workshops. Welcome to your procrastination, Hannah. I'm hoping that you're getting a lot of value out of this and it'll give you some tools to stop reviewing other people's research and providing feedback. Anna, yes, being helpful to others. It feels good, but we're actually procrastinating, completing smaller tasks. Yes, completing smaller tasks is really the key here, right? Because completing a smaller task will access the dopamine that you need to feel better temporarily. Yep. Yeah. Peer reviewing. Yeah, it's really interesting because it's easier to serve others than serve yourself, right? Endlessly researching. Yes. Yep. These are so common. Netflix. Yep. Netflix. Yep. Rewriting out your to-do list. Yeah. Okay. So we're all clear on what our go-to procrastination habits are. Good, because that will play a part in how we work around them. Okay. Okay. Now, why this matters. Okay. We need to give ourselves an opportunity to step out of the procrastination loop. Okay. So the reason this matters so much to all of you is because this procrastination perfectionism loop that you may or may not be in, but I'm dare saying a lot of you are experiencing this in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't just stop you from progressing. What it does is it actually hijacks your level of self-trust and confidence. And that's the damaging bit. Okay. You lose faith in your abilities and in yourself. Okay, so it's really very, very important for you to have a strategy to help you get over and get around procrastination and perfectionism. Okay, because there is no reason for you to lose confidence in this process or lose trust in this process. Okay, the process of writing your thesis should be elevating, should be expansive, not contracting. Yep. And it is a challenge, but anything big is worth doing, right? Yeah. Okay. Now, this is the trick. When you learn to recognize this loop and regulate your nervous system, you then have the ability to reclaim your clarity, momentum, and inspiration. Okay. We do not want to hide from this procrastination perfectionism piece. We want to own it and step out of the loop. Okay. So we've done that bit. All right. Downward spiral. Let's get into the nuts and bolts. Okay. Now, the key here is once you see yourself stepping into this spiral, you then have the ability to step off it. Okay. And it always starts with fear. Okay. Remember, procrastination and perfectionism, particularly procrastination, is an emotional regulation issue. Okay. So it starts with fear. Okay. And you got to notice when you're stepping into that procrastination habit. Yeah. So for me, when I notice I'm hypo cleaning, yeah, I finish the drawer that I'm on because I still need that dopamine hit, and then I stop. Yeah. So starts with the fear, right? Number one, fear of failure, criticism, embarrassment, not being enough. Really common belief. Okay. It shows up as that resistance, dread, or anxiety. Okay. Okay. Then this fear actually forms a trigger. Okay. It activates this deeper, more personal belief. I'm not good enough. I'm not creative enough. My work won't be accepted, etc. And they all live within us in some way, shape, or form. We actually have to actively heal them, okay, through awareness and work. But it will activate a trigger. Then what happens is that shame usually drops in, okay? We make ourselves bad and wrong for the act of procrastinating, okay? And then to escape the stress, we look for immediate relief. And that's the habit that I was talking about. That's the cleaning of the kitchen drawers. That's the doom scrolling. That's the IKEA shopping. Yeah. Yeah, that's the realestate.com searching. Yeah. Because with those little quick dopamine hits, we get this temporary relief from the stress that we're about to face. Yeah. And the interesting thing is perfectionism is the mask that we usually wear to avoid this spiral. Yeah. But where there is downward spirals, there is also upward spirals. Okay. Now, the one thing I want to share with you before we go into the upward spiral that is perfectionism. It doesn't prevent failure. It just prevents momentum. Yeah. It is your biggest block. All right. So let's reverse this spiral. So once we connect with this, okay, I'm in the throes of doing my procrastination habit. Okay. We want to just own it. We want to acknowledge it. Okay. I'm procrastinating. Step one is awareness, knowing. Okay, this is what I'm doing. Caught me, I own it. Yep. The next thing that I want you to do is calm your nervous system. Okay, because procrastination is actually a fight-flight response. Yeah. And there's lots of ways that you can regulate, and you'll all have your go-tos. You know, it could be some quick breath work. It could be grabbing a cup of tea and sitting down for a moment. It could be a quick walk around the block. It could be patting your dog. It could be doing something that interrupts that fight-flight response. Okay. Then once you've regulated your nervous system, because remember, a brain can only create from a state of calm, not a state of stress. And we want your brain to be switched on and ready to go. Okay, we want you to shift your perspective. And I really request that, or I invite you to be kind to yourself. Okay, your brain is only doing its job. It's trying to protect you from the discomfort or the fear or the shame or the blame or whatever it is that's triggered the procrastination in the first place. So, thanks, brain, for trying to keep me safe, but I've really got to do this and I really want to do this. Yeah. Yeah. Let yourself off the hook, because the shame will only take the downward spiral back on board. We want to be kind to ourselves and compassionate with ourselves, forgive ourselves and give ourselves permission to play. Yeah. Okay, let's be a bit light about it. Let's take the stress away. One thing that I say to a lot of the students, both in clinic and with complete thesis support, I ask them to ask themselves this one question. Do I need to stress about this to get it done? Or can I just get it done? Okay. The answer 99% of the time is that I can just get it done. Yeah. And I have to remind myself of that all the time. Yeah. My kids even say it now, my 5-year-old with her homework. I don't need to stress it together about this, I just have to get it done. And then she goes through it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how to read yet. That's okay. You get there. We'll get it done. All right. And with that lightness and that playful state in mind, we just do one thing to move you in the right direction. Yeah. That one small action. Okay. Because this actually, play turns off the inner critic. When we're in play, we're in flow. Okay. So in your workbook, I've given you an opportunity. I will skip that page. Let's go to page 10. Yep. And I've given you the opportunity to just map out quickly your upward spiral. Okay. So step 1, acknowledge. Okay. Just write down that major procrastination go-to. Yeah. Step 2, just write down your favorite way of regulating. Okay. Breath work, cup of tea, piece of chocolate, yoga stretch, cuddle your hubby, cuddle your kids, cuddle your dog, whatever it is. Okay. Then I just want you to write something kind to yourself, how you're going to be kind to yourself once you've caught yourself procrastinating. And then just write down a couple of ways you can be a little bit playful when it comes to doing your work. Yeah. That could just be putting on some decent music and getting into the groove, right? That could be making a bit of a game with your time or giving yourself a mini goal for your next flow state, which we'll go into in a minute. Yeah. So this is just a bit of a strategy structure for you with your upward spiral, okay? All right, I'm going to keep moving along. You can have a play with that and print out as many of those as you like. Okay, because I want to get into flow states, because this is where play really takes hold, okay? So if you're not familiar with flow, flow is an optimal state of consciousness where we feel and perform at our best. More specifically, the term refers to those moments of total absorption, where you're so focused on what you're doing that everything else just disappears and all aspects of performance are significantly amplified. And the reason that they're amplified is because of this, because there are beautiful neurochemicals that we have access to during flow. Okay, and everybody's experienced flow before. You know, when you've been at a concert, when you've been out walking, when you've been playing sport, when you're cooking, when you're cleaning even, you just get into the flow. Okay, but flow is where we do our best work. As I was talking about optimizing, leveraging your time, flow is one of the best ways of doing it. Okay, so I'll talk you through this sequence because I want you to really understand how important it is to get into flow and how to set yourself up for success in flow states, because a lot of us kind of get it a little bit wrong just at the start, and we just have to get the start right because the rest just takes care of itself. So the trick to getting into flow is to just make sure that the first 15 minutes or so are completely uninterrupted. Yeah. So you really do need to create an environment that is conducive to no interruptions. So if you're working from home, for example, and you've got other people living with you, communicate with them that it's important that they don't interrupt you for a couple of hours and really hold that boundary nice and strong. Yeah. If you're in the workplace, maybe you book out a meeting room and with a do not disturb. If you're managing people, communicate to them in the morning that you're doing some deep work and only interrupt you if somebody's dying. Okay? So this is only possible if we create a really lovely, strong boundary. Okay? And boundaries are the ultimate display of self-love. Okay? If you care about yourself enough to do this work, you will set these boundaries for flow. Okay, so the reason that we have to have the first 15 minutes uninterrupted, and you need to take accountability for this as well, turn off your pings, put your phone away, have water or tea or snacks by your side. Okay, so you're not tempted to leave this beautiful flow state. Because in that first 15 minutes, you start to release norepinephrine and dopamine into your bloodstream. And what that helps is for you to focus, and it enhances pattern recognition, which is really important for the work that you're doing. And then once you've reached this gain phase, you start to access endorphins, which makes the work feel effortless. Once you've reached this phase, the rest takes care of itself. You're just on a roll. Yep. Time starts to distort and you can link ideas with greater ease. Again, really important for thesis writing. Yep. And once you reach your peak of this flow state, your body releases this amazing neurochemical called anandamide, which is where you can enhance, your cognition is enhanced, your stress and pain completely dissolve, you're relaxed into what you're doing, you're intuitive with what you're doing, and your creative problem solving is really on point. Okay? And the example I give of how powerful anandamide is my hubby's a builder, and he comes home covered in injuries. And I often ask him, how on earth did you not notice that you have a 12-centimeter gash on your arm? And he goes, I don't know. I was just busy. Yeah. He was so focused on the task at hand, he didn't even notice that he'd cut himself. Happens all the time. That's anandamide. That's what anandamide does. Now, when we start running out of glucose, we go into the transition phase and we start releasing oxytocin and serotonin, which are the neurochemicals of love and connection and satisfaction and peace. So you start to feel a little calmer. You start to, you trust yourself more because the work is getting close to being finished with that pocket of time. You just feel fulfilled, right? And the other beautiful thing about oxytocin and serotonin is that they also enhance your immune system. So not only by getting into flow are you being highly productive when your brain's at its peak and at its best, but you're also enhancing your immune system and your overall wellness by creating flow. So there's lots of perks to getting into flow state. Now, the reason I mentioned glucose is because the more quality glucose you have your prefrontal cortex has access to, the longer you can have a flow state. But I really need to be clear, I'm not talking about lollies or chocolates and things like that, because if you have those, you'll peak and crash quite quickly. So I'm talking about, quality carbohydrates and things like that. So fruits and, sourdough with avocado and dates and nuts and seeds and a good coffee and a good cup of tea and some good hydration, okay? That will ensure that your flow state goes for as long as possible. Now, flow states go for approximately 2 hours on average, but if you're well fueled, you can extend it. And also, if you are neurodiverse, you can extend it even further. But you'll have a harder challenge at the start with the focus piece, with getting into the flow. But there are strategies that we can support you with helping you get into that too. Okay, so flow. This is the key to optimizing your work in shorter periods of time as well. And the one thing that I absolutely love about flow states is that they give you permission to break. Because unless you break to refuel, so you've got glucose available for your next flow state, you'll burn your brain out. Yeah. You don't need to work consistently from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. without a break. You will not get your best work done. And this is why. Flow states are why. Okay. So during the break, it's a really good time to just mix it up a bit, to stretch, to move your body, to refuel, to go for a walk, to do something completely different. Yeah. The other thing that's really interesting is that if you create what I like to call white space, which is basically nothingness, okay, sometimes our best ideas come through in these gaps. You know, you'll be putting your kids' clothes away in the drawer and all of a sudden, oh my God, that idea just connected. Yeah. Or you'll be going for a walk with your dog. Oh, yes, I can see how that data relates to that. Got it. Bang. If we don't break, we can't access that beautiful, what I like to call drop-ins from the soul. Yeah. Okay. The other good thing about flow states is if you honor them and you do a flow and then a break, what you do is you eliminate what's called the gray zone. Okay. It's kind of where you're half working, half not really on. You're multitasking. Remember, our brains can't multitask because we only have one processor, our prefrontal cortex. We're task switching, which is making us incredibly ineffective. Okay. If we're in flow, we're working in flow and then we're recovering in our rest period. Yeah. Okay. Not gray zoning. We waste a lot of time gray zoning. And if you want to explore more information on flow, the king of flow is Stephen Kotler. So he's got the Flow Research Collective, and there's a lot of resources. He's got a heap of books. So if you really want to deep dive into that, then go for gold because you won't be wasting your time if you do that. I've done a bit of a summary here, but he's the master. Okay, so now understanding flow, what you can do, and what I encourage a lot of the students to do, is to just have a look at how many flow states you can realistically create in your week and what you're going to use the flow states for. Okay, rather than just blocking out your time, let's be really intentional with how we're going to use these flow states and intentional with what you're going to do in the breaks. Yeah. And you can have a flow state for research, you can have a flow state for admin, you can have a flow state for writing, you can have a flow state for, you know, your exercise, whatever it is. But when it comes to work and study and writing, look, you can usually fit in a maximum of 4 or 5 flow states a day, depending on the length of them. But it's really good to look at it on a weekly basis. Yeah. It's more realistic and it gives you a little bit more wiggle room because life isn't linear. Okay, we need to be a bit flexible. So have a think about how many flow states you can fit into your week. And then the last piece I want to share with you is this 1 candle rule. Now, I touched on it when it came to the play-based piece of the upward spiral. It's just that one small step, okay, that moves you in the right direction. Okay. So after you've had this awareness, you've caught yourself in the act of procrastination, then you've regulated, yeah. Then you've been nice to yourself. Okay. Then you play. It's that one small thing that gets the momentum going, okay? And this stops you from going into avoidance mode and it helps you build momentum and it can lead to a flow state, just that one small step, okay? And it works because it gives you that little hit of dopamine, which is the brain's reward chemical, and it lowers the stress, lowers that barrier, okay? It helps turn on your prefrontal cortex, yep, and gets you out of that fear and overwhelm. Okay. It lowers the energy. We want it to be a small start as well, because it's just that low barrier to entry. And it builds confidence with the quick wins. It's not threatening to a perfectionist brain either. Those one small steps. And it just interrupts avoidance with gentle progress. Okay. So I'd like you to think about what your 1 candle would be in relation to what you're procrastinating on. Yeah. So have a think about what one candle you can light today. Okay. And I'm going to finish up on this quote. You don't need perfection to be powerful. You just need presence, permission, and one brave step. And from that space, your most meaningful work is born. All right. I'm going to hand back to Azelle. And if you've got any questions, I'll keep my eye on the chat. I'll stop sharing.
Amazing, Kate. Always. We love that. Yeah. If there's any questions for Kate, just drop them in the chat or come off mute. There's time for questions.
Yeah.
What stood out for some of you guys or anything? So just, yeah, Kerry, who's off mute? No. There's so many points, like even for myself with flow states, Kate, I still work on getting them better, right? Having
Yeah.
those real productivity stints and then real breaks in between. I think most can relate to sitting here all day, right? And certainly in my big academic years, I worked until I had to go home to the kids, right? Never took a break. But my best ideas came through when I had a break to either get my coffee downstairs or had to go to the toilet. So I had my best ideas because it was a forced break, right?
Huh?
I used to run back and go, got that, right? But that shows you take more of those opportunities to create some ideas. They're not going to happen in front of your screen, right? I can really guarantee that. And we know this happens for many, many students. Gabby, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, even writing stuff down, like, even giving yourself permission, because I think there's this thing that you have to be sitting at your desk for like 10 hours a day and just being like able to be like, as I was writing things down, I was like, yeah, and I could all like, so like my shoulders were also like just dropping as you were talking. So I think it's just like, it's such a, yeah, it's such a shift. So thank you.
No, you're welcome.
It's amazing how we almost need permission to take a break, right? Or permission to not have to work all the time. And I think for many of us, we have this historical influences that, your parents worked really hard. My parents certainly did, right?
Yeah,
And we have
mine
this
too.
thinking that in order to create success, we have to work, 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 work. And, seriously, even, after, my big academic part, I only then realized what it takes to become successful, which is not working hard. Success doesn't want it. Like it actually craves that order, that visionary, that being really present and stillness and white space and creativity. And the biggest thing, again, I'm a neuroscientist and I'm not saying that to brag, but I never really
You can
understood
brag about
the,
that.
the impact that fear has on my prefrontal cortex. Now, all of us need that bloody prefrontal cortex to engage at all times, right? And we don't realize that a little bit of fear and doubt is quite significant. Like it literally lifts the prefrontal cortex off and you're in a state of flight and fight. Now, none of us wants to be in a state of flight if we need to sit here and do work, right? But the subtlest doubt creates enough fear for your prefrontal cortex to disengage, right? So what can you do to be in a state? And that's our word in our group for the year. State's everything. If you're not in a good state to sit here and work, don't work, right? Go and do something like Kate really shared this beautifully, that playfulness, and again, the first 15 minutes is amazing. Like now I kind of go, gosh, it takes a little bit to get into that flow and that motivation and the work comes, right? Now I go, okay, it's fine. I'll have a bit of play. I often play music. I play with some dot points, some structuring. And then guess what? Then it comes, right? But again, we kind of expect to just jump in and sit here and be motivated and then everything goes. But thank goodness for Kate's flow state slide, right? Any other questions? Permanent holiday. Michelle, I spoke to you this morning.
Definitely not true.
Michelle got a penguin this morning, Kate. Some of you guys know what penguins mean in our
Oh.
space. It's basically a slap behind the head to say, we're not talking like that in our space.
No, no.
Knowing me.
Um, yeah, and remember, we do a lot of work on emotions in the container as well. And just going to your point on doubt, Azelle, is that everyone uses it wrong. It's really just a sense checker to make sure that we're on the right path. Okay, when it sticks around, it means we haven't answered the question that it's asking. And usually is this where we should be putting our energy? Yeah. Okay, and once you can answer that question, the doubt can go. Okay, we need to sometimes give ourselves permission to let go of emotions that have shown up, because if we've listened to the emotion and done what it's asked us to do, or if the emotion's delivered the message, we can give it permission to go as long as we're aware of what it's been designed to help us with, if that makes sense. So with doubt, yeah, it comes along as a sense checker. Yeah. Is this the right place to be putting my energy? Is this the right thing to be looking at? If not, pivot. If so, move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So how about, I mean, if there's more questions, please just come off mute. I would love it if you guys can share in the chat what's your big takeaway from today? What's something that landed? We use repetition a lot here to really start to embody some of the work, and hopefully we can add some actions around it. So let us know in the chat what's something that landed for you today. What was a bit of a aha moment? Or, some of this stuff is not new, right? But it's hearing it again, maybe hearing it in a different state, different context. I would love to know. Yeah. The gray zone, Kate, I'm not sure if you saw my face. I feel like the gray zone.
What did you?
I don't know why I relate to the gray zone so much, but that little picture with the man just slotting back on the chair. We're kind of working, but we're not really productive, but we're working. That gray zone is, I don't know who's in the gray zone. I feel like most of us can be in that gray zone a lot, which is working all the time, not being super productive,
Yeah,
thinking we're busy. But I just smile. I don't know, Kate, it makes my day every time.
the grey zone. Yeah,
Like, yeah.
look, yeah. I used to work on average before I became a practitioner. I was working in creative agencies. I was working on average 17 to 18-hour days without breaks often. And I can honestly say that I probably could have gotten away with a good 8 or 9 and been just as productive because I didn't have these tools or this insight. I just thought I was doing what was expected of me and I was doing the right thing and I was showing dedication. Yeah, but that lent me on a very clear path to burnout. So, and this is why I pull this stuff together because I want people to avoid, things that I've experienced that haven't been great for me. Yeah. So,
I think
yeah.
sometimes we don't realize perfectionism is part of us.
Oh,
Like,
everyone online has had to have had, an experience with it somewhere along the line, right? It's conditioning. It's not your fault. It's just how we've been conditioned. There's the school system is really good at conditioning perfectionism into us. Because when we're being perfect, we're not getting into trouble. So, yeah.
see some actions in there as well. Creating my chapter outline, amazing. Have a go at it, guys.
Yeah.
If you get your chapters done, you're done. Like that's all it takes. And I know that's a big statement and it's heavily loaded at times, but just get really clear on what that looks like. Your chapters 1 to 6 to 8 to 10. If you don't know, send me an email, right? Send me your thesis outline. I'll have a go at it for you, right? I'll give you some feedback. But make sure your team is in that, right? We have to do work with the team, sometimes more so with the team than with you guys. And if you are already in that supervisory role, because I know some of you guys are, you may be supervising honor students and things like that, you can take some of these learnings to them as well, right? Give them perspective, give them a clear goal. And we just get clearer and clearer. We don't know exactly. Remember, it's not about how, right? Don't get stuck on their how. The Wright brothers who put a plane in the sky, that wasn't a logical thing ever. The earth being round wasn't logical either, right? We just have to sometimes trust that, if we take 2 steps forwards and we get clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer along the way, that you're going to get there, right? We sometimes present the snakes and ladder topic in here as well. Like you've all been to 100, right? On the snakes and ladders board. Now, how are we going to get there for each one of us is very different. Sometimes there's a ladder, sometimes there's a snake, but if you keep rolling the dice, you're going to get there, right? And that's what this is going to take. Get clear what your target is. And again, many of us don't connect and reconnect with the target. We just work. Right? That often means we're working hard, often in a gray zone, going sideways, not working on the high leverage activities. That's tomorrow's first part. We often work on those low hanging fruit activities, right? And again, that's all of us, right? And I can certainly relate to everything that you guys experience. Let me just check. Any other comments, feedback? Because we're going to wrap it up there for today. Upward spiral. Yeah. And awareness is everything. That's step one, right? Just position yourself. And I've thought about doing this positioning session as well. Writing is a big topic, right? We talk about it all the time, and there's so much that we can talk about. But position yourself within the process and where you're at and how you're going, and understand the bigger world around you, because that can often bring awareness and perspective around stuff as well. We often talk about the barbecue mafia. We love them. They're usually your closest friends, family, supervisors. They say stuff because they want to help you, but they often take you out. They create more doubt, right? So manage the barbecue mafia. They have the best intentions. They do react. They do say stuff. It's often the mother-in-law sometimes in other parts of our lives. But they mean well, right? And if you can just distance from that sometimes and understand, and that's just a bit of noise, again, we can better progress and get through some of these obstacles much quicker. I missed anything. So tomorrow we'll kick off with the high leverage activities. I want you to think about, what do you spend most of your time on? So if you want to do a bit of homework in preparation for tomorrow, what are some activities that you spend most of your time on? And you can already start to get awareness as to whether those activities are actually really driving you forward, or are they just making you feel okay and you're kind of getting through incremental progress, right? Now, most of us think through incremental progress, that's what it takes, but we work on how can we create leaps in our progress. None of us are here to work ridiculously hard for incremental success, right? And then we'll talk about, what you think you become. So if your thinking is that you can't write and that writing is really hard and that you're never going to get there, then that's what you're going to have, right? So we'll talk about how you can, again, position yourself for this writing aspect, or really for anything that you find hard. And then we'll talk about examiners, how to impress them. We'll talk in particular about how to set up chapter 1, especially if you're in a PhD thesis, positioning the examiners, get your writing to tell and sell. And then we'll talk about the ABC of writing as well. But please help me just thank Kate for doing today's beautiful session. And if there's anything else, just reach out and we'll get back to you guys about stuff. But we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Recordings will be sent out from today's later once we get them uploaded. And then the same tomorrow, same Zoom link, same workbook. But yeah, awesome. Love the engagement. Thank you for being here. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Kate, as always. See you soon.